Hello, this is Ginny Brant with Unleash Your God-Given Healing with Lifestyle Changes. Today we're going to look at 6 things you need to know about glyphosate. Glyphosate is an herbicide used on food crops in the United States. It was formerly patented, believe it or not, and used as a metal chelator because it binds to materials like calcium to clear them out of pipes. Now that may be great for the pipes, but what does it do for people who need essential nutrients to stay healthy? Good question, huh? Many see it as the superhero or Superman of the agricultural world because it claims to increase food production. But many countries in Europe have either banned or heavily restricted its use. So, is glyphosate a superhero or is it a villain? Well, this is something only you can decide. But here's what I know about this controversial herbicide. Number 1, many products in the U.S. are heavily sprayed with this herbicide. It is used to control weeds and grasses. It is the active ingredient in Roundup, which almost all of us use in our yards. It's absorbed through the leaf of the plant, where it then travels to the roots and it actually prevents the roots from absorbing nutrients. Therefore, it generally kills all plants it comes in contact with within 4 to 10 days. It can be used with crops such as corn and soybeans, but the corn or soybeans or crops must be genetically modified to withstand multiple sprayings of glyphosate and then the crop itself not die. Wheat is not only grown with glyphosate, but also dried out or desiccated using glyphosate. Now, some scientists and researchers claim that this herbicide simply dissolves in the soil and does not end up in our bodies. But others claim it spreads in both soil and water, is toxic, and may end up in our bodies. Something to think about. Number 2, there are conflicting opinions as to whether or not glyphosate raises our risk for cancer. Since 1974, when glyphosate was first introduced, we've seen a huge increase in the United States in the use of glyphosate on our food crops, as I mentioned. Today, over 150 tons are sprayed each year across our country. This herbicide, again, has allowed farmers to grow more crops and increase their food supply because, let's be honest, it is effective at managing invasive and noxious weeds. But here's the question: at what cost? According to our Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA, there are no risks of concern to human health. The EPA also declares that glyphosate is unlikely to be a human carcinogen. Now, this is very interesting to me because the World Health Organization, the WHO, found it to be probably carcinogenic to humans. In their opinion, glyphosate is in the same category as arsenic and asbestos. And asbestos raises cancer by about 28%. That's why it's no longer allowed in buildings and supplies. So interesting, right? So what's a concerned consumer to believe? Definitely more research needs to be done. But here's the problem. On the other hand, some studies suggest a possible link between glyphosate exposure and an increased risk of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. That's a type of cancer, as well as other cancers. One study, a meta-analysis at the University of Washington, found that the link between glyphosate and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, known as NHL, is stronger than previously reported. The rise of glyphosate as the most widely used herbicide raises serious health concerns given its potential links with lymphoma. Although the underlying mechanisms remain unknown, mechanistic studies of glyphosate-induced immunosuppression, inflammation, endocrine disruption, genetic alterations, and oxidative stress suggest plausible links between glyphosate-based herbicides exposure and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma development. The overall evidence from human, animal, and mechanistic studies presented here supports a compelling link between exposures to this herbicide and increased risk for lymphoma. Number 3, glyphosate use is restricted in organic farming in the United States and is restricted or banned in some countries. Its use is simply not allowed in organic farming in our country, and for good reason. And more people each year, for this reason, are turning to organic crops. But keep in mind that glyphosate used on conventional farms can travel through the air to organic crops, meaning that these crops might have detectable, but at least much lower levels of glyphosate. Countries such as China, Canada, Brazil, and Australia allow glyphosate use. And although, as we've mentioned, it's heavily used in the United States, there are a few counties and areas in our country with restrictions, and good for them. In fact, as early as 2017, the state of California added glyphosate to its list of carcinogens. In March 2019, Los Angeles County, a large county, issued a moratorium on glyphosate. The County Board of Supervisors cited a need for more research into glyphosate's health effects. Again, good for them. Since the International Agency on Research on Cancer, called IARC, which is a part of the World Health Organization, the WHO, found glyphosate to be probably carcinogenic, in 2015, several countries have banned or restricted glyphosate use. These countries include Austria, Belgium, the Czech Republic, Denmark, France, Italy, the Netherlands, Bermuda, Thailand, Vietnam, and Germany. Germany passed legislation in 2021 to stop using glyphosate by 2024. So what do these countries know that we either don't know or are blind to? Number 4, glyphosate may be an endocrine disruptor, gut disruptor, and promoter of inflammation and oxidative stress, as previously mentioned. Dr. Stephanie Seneff, the MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology senior research scientist, claims that glyphosate is an endocrine disruptor and an underlying factor for many diseases, including autism. She also believes that glyphosate kills bacteria in the gut and tears through the gut lining, and this is where most of our immune cells are. She is not the only researcher who has concerns about this herbicide and its wide use in America. I know dozens and dozens of them. And there are many, dozens and dozens of medical doctors I know who have also expressed concern, including Dr. Russell Blaylock, who has made videos on this very issue. A study from the University of California's Berkeley School of Public Health found that childhood exposure to glyphosate may increase the risk of liver inflammation and metabolic disorders in early adulthood, which could lead to later health problems. Other studies suggest that glyphosate exposure can affect the nervous system, leading to oxidative stress and damage to the neurons. So if you have a neurological disease, you might want to look at lowering your pesticide residue, especially with glyphosate. Number 5, glyphosate was found in this gal's body at high levels. And this was not the only pesticide or herbicide found in my body at high levels. One of the Agent Orange chemicals, D-42, was also found in my body. And this is interesting because the EPA states on its website, residues of glyphosate on any food or feed item are safe for consumers up to the established tolerances. Before allowing the use of a pesticide on food crops, the EPA sets a tolerance or limit on how much pesticide residue can legally remain on our food and our feed products or commodities. If residues are found above the established tolerance level, the commodity will be subject to seizure by the government. I hope they're keeping an eye on this. The presence of a detectable pesticide residue, they say, though, does not mean the residue is at an unsafe level. Well, I certainly hope not. But what about the high presence of a pesticide, such as found in my body? Remember, some scientists and researchers actually claim that this herbicide dissolves in the soil and does not end up in water or in our bodies. Think again. According to the research at the CDC, more than 80% of urine samples drawn from children and adults in a sample of over 2,000 people in a U.S. health study found detectable levels of glyphosate. 80%. Think about that. Now, when I showed the results of my urine test to a retired high-ranking professor of agriculture at Clemson University, he about fell out of his chair. He looked at me and he said, "We were promised by the big agricultural companies that these pesticides could not accumulate in the human body." Think again. More research needs to be done. It happened to me. Number 6, more than 100,000 cancer lawsuits have been filed in the U.S. against the manufacturer of glyphosate, Roundup. These lawsuits claim that glyphosate is to blame for their cancer. These are mainly people suffering from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. To date, 80% of all Roundup claims have been settled with payouts, with 30,000 still active and pending. Now, why would all these claims be paid out if there was no evidence that glyphosate is harmful to the human body? And when those high levels of glyphosate were found in my body, not in my husband's body, I decided to lower my levels. I was diagnosed with an aggressive and estrogen-fed cancer for which I had no genetics nor any risk factors. I also did not have high estrogen levels coming from the estrogen production in my body as measured by hormone tests given a year before my diagnosis of cancer. Again, this all points to the fact that more research needs to be done. I'm just a case study. And that research needs to be unbiased, meaning not paid for by the company that benefits from its use. And this also makes me wonder if the EPA and the CDC and the Department of Agriculture are even communicating with each other. It also makes me wonder, are they really protecting us? Now, this is a question only you can research and decide for yourself. Hopefully, today I've given you the groundwork to do exactly that. Research, check behind me, stay tuned, because next week I'll give you ways you can lower your exposure to glyphosate and to other pesticides. I hope this information has been helpful to you. This is important information we all need to know. I do hope that you will subscribe to my YouTube channel, that you will like this video, share it, because other people need to hear this information. And that you will click the notification bell so you will know when I post new information. Until next time, here's to your good health by being aware and by looking at things you might need to avoid, especially things that accumulate in your body as toxins. And may God bless.